To start off with, why don't you tell us your full name?
My name is Heinz.
No, your
No.
full name when you were born. Your full German name.
Gerhard Heinz Paul. But they changed my name to Paul Gerhard when I came on the ship because they couldn't pronounce Gerhard. Paul was easier for those people that brought us over. I came on a troop transporter with about 700 displaced person, and when the cook always called us down for the dining room, Paul was easier to him to say than Gerhard. See? But I had Gerhard Heinz Paul, but here I always, in America, had my passport here is Paul Gerhard. See?
And what city were you born in?
Well, I was born in the eastern province in Germany, it's Pommern, and that's a lot of agriculture and a lot of nice forests, hardwood wood, softwood, and my relatives was all farmers. I was more by my grandparents on a farm. I liked animals. During the school, I spent 2 years, 1 year by my uncle, my father's brother, and he had a big farm. I had to herd the cows, sheep, help to milk cows before I went to school in the morning, 1 cow in the morning, and my niece and my aunt, they milked 6 cows. But I had to help every morning before school. Like a cow came home at noon. We had schools from 7 till 12, and then the work started on the farm. And no running around and playing. Like I said, I had to herd the cows and help in the fields. And in the harvest, we had only 4 weeks in the harvest when rye and oats and hay was made. And in the fall, when we had to pick potatoes out of big fields, we had a lot of potatoes there. 3 weeks, but we had the vacations that we could help on the farms. Because in our village there was 12 farms, but no other family. Only one guy, he had the post office, and he helped. All we could get help, otherwise we had to work together a little bit if you had the threshing and something where you needed more people. Because my grandfather and grandmother was in the 50s or 60s then, and I had to go there and help. My father and mother and my 3 other siblings. My brother was 3 years younger, born in 27, and then a sister born in 29. And the younger sister was still living in Germany right now, Vera. She was born in 32, so I was 8 years older than she. And when we was 14, we had our schooling behind us, except you want to be specialists in teaching, lawyers, and something like that, doctors, then you had to go onto universities, see? But your regular school was 18 years, but we don't have so much free time in those years, see? And let's see, when I came out of school in 38, I went to school in 30, came out in 38, and my sister started that school because she is 8 years younger than I am. So, and I even remember when she was born. I was by my parents, and my parents lived in a little city, you know, like maybe 8,000 or so people there. And that was only people that built wagons that time, or the fixed machineries, farm machineries. That was all agriculture business. Not big factories, but blacksmiths, you know, put shoes on the horses. And most farmers, they competed who had the best team of horses. That was really their tractor and best automobile too, because we don't have no autos then. See? I remember one farmer, he was a veterinarian during World War I, and he had real asthma. So they allowed that he had a farm that was already during the Second War, because you couldn't buy no cars then and no gas anyhow. And drove bicycles, see? Never got overweight either, I guarantee you that. We always was busy. No television, no radio. But my uncle had a radio, and he only put it on for the weather report, count the harvesting in the fields. See? When he had to mow grass, so it came a dry season, so the hay dried. Or to harvest crops like we had a lot of rye and oats and wheat and a lot of potatoes. See? And that's depending on during the year, and we always had work all. And in the winter time they thresh the grain, not like nowadays they have the big machines, and go on the field and it go right in a sack, but that wasn't that time. We always had work, see, and we always had to help. If we had Sunday afternoons, once we could play with our friends, but our school in my village there, where my parents and my grandparents and uncle lived, there was only 16 kids in one class. Some grades don't even have kids. They didn't have many kids, It was all, yeah. The 8th grades then, they had to start and help the little ones, teach them, and the later taught them the upper grades, see? One teacher. And you never talk back. And you said Herr Lehrer, and you don't talk by his first name either. And if you did something wrong, you might have a little notch, but you got a little claps on your butt. But you never told it at home. You probably get another one at home. And the teacher found out anyhow. He went to the farmers. They know each other. He went there to eat and talked to those farmers and came in the house on Christmas or so. That school was a new school, but the teacher had his living quarters on one side and had one schoolroom on the other side. Ne? And everyone knew each other. And you there don't a lot of respect for teachers and police, like it is here now. I can't believe something like that, how they treat here the law of people. We had one policeman on a bicycle, 4 villages. He went around in a bicycle. When they had Thanksgiving celebrations in the fall, when all the crops were in, and he came, had a little dance. The farmer had a big house. He danced there and played music. And those old farmers and the policeman was in the other room and played cards and had something to drink, see? People don't come in cars. He don't have to watch traffic. They came in horse and buggy or on bicycles. And he came with his bike, put them on a tree outside, and then they played cards with all the farmers and had a few drinks, and that they know each other too, see? Yeah. Another thing, when we went in my little town, when I was years went there to school, there was 8 grades, but each grade had their own classes, see? And there was all men teachers, except the first grade was a lady teacher, and she had to learn the upper classes how to sew and knit and make needlework. And the other ones was all teachers in the 30s, 40s, and you there don't behave.
Did you ever get in trouble?
No, not really. I was too afraid. But I tell you one thing, in our class, and he was that time such green teacher already, and he lived with those people. He was a spediteur. He picked it up from the railroads, brought the material to the farmers and in the stores. And the teacher lived there, upstairs. And them two boys was a little older, probably that time 9 or 10 or 12 years, I don't know anymore, but they went in the tree and took those eggs from it was an owl nest in the woods. And they threw took the nests out and wrapped the nest and destroyed the eggs. He found out. They both got, you think, the kids told it, her parents, does the teacher what lived above in the same house that they got a licking that day? They probably knew anyhow, but yeah. And he was that time, he took us in trips and woods, learned us how the trees, and in May we had some certain kind of maikäfer, it was a little käfers, in birch trees to shuttle and they fell down. See, they eat on the leaves. And then we picked up our whole class, took all cigar boxes along and put them in the box. Then we took them home and fed them to the chicken. Them box, you know. And so that we was, like I said, not big crowds and always knew each other and went into their houses and this. But then when I got out of school, then I was for good by my grandparents because they was both alone and they had 80 acres and they had a lot of work there. They got in the 50s that time, probably in the early 60s. And my grandma showed me everything and I liked animals. Cows and calves, sows with little pigs. And he showed me how when they was born and everything and how to feed them and this and that and milking by hand, not with a machine. And then you had to, the milk went through a separator. You had to turn that machine, the milk came on top, the cream went on that side and the milk on this side. See? The milk was fed to the hogs, see? And the cream they made butter out. See? And butter you have to butter too, and I hated that. You had to stay there and butter, you know, as a kid. That half hour, the hour went, never ended. And so we had a good life. And Grandma was, you know, she did everything for me. If I made me extra pancakes and stuff like that when I wanted it. And what I liked when I was young, camel tea. You know what camel tea is? It grows in the garden. They don't go much to the, yeah.
Chamomile?
Camel tea. That is a plant. When the leaves dry, and that is tea, like peppermint tea, and it's like that. And I like that tea. And she made me always an extra pot of tea.
You're fine with it.
Yeah, and she did a lot of things for me. Oh gosh, she brought me then when I was in the fields with the horses, then plowing or something. She brought a bottle of coffee, nice sandwiches, cheese, sausage. And then we ate together out in the field. We don't need to go to picnics. We had picnics every summer. When we ate when we was harvesting in the field, always brought a basket with butter, and bread, homemade baked bread, and fruit, you know. Simple, everything what you had. And when the cherries was ripe, or the pears was ripe, or the apples later on, and they dried the apple too, dry them as and later on use them in cooking too, and a big bed sheet, dried a whole bunch of those apples and the plums and something like that. It's all self-made stuff. All what you went to the stores was for seasonings, you know, they bought, and like a lot of them, Grandma raised in the garden too. Yeah, and then it was, like I said, when I was 14 out of school, and then I was for good when the school was out. That was graduated in the town there, the church and everything. Then the next day I was already by my grandfather. I walked there, walked to the railroad tracks, went through our village almost, and then I walked. It was always an hour walk. Or if I had, when I lived in the city with my parents, when there was any time, weekends where we could go, I always went to Grandpa and Grandma. He always had something special for me. And then came 1939, and I was 15 years old. And I remember when my grandma told me then, when the war started in Poland, we was only 40 miles or so from the Polish border. And before that started, the army came with big guns and cannons and stayed in always on the trees and bushes or it was protected. Airplanes never came then, but they was pretty strict, you know. And we crawled in on those big tanks and trucks, and one outfit even pulled horses. With horses, he had the big guns, you know, by the artillery. And then I remember when my grandma said, "Oh, before you get old enough, the war's probably over." Well, I got 18 and I was drafted. Everybody was 18 was drafted. And they told you if you went for the infantry or the artillery or the Air Force or the ships, you know. And well, I went drafted in. That was a week or 2 weeks before Christmas in 1942. And then we was there in those big concerns, all young guys, you know, 18, 19 years old. See, I was 18 in April then, and I was drafted in December. Just 3 weeks about before Christmas. Then they sent us to the big camp, what used to be Poland. See, from Poland we didn't hear much, only the first couple of days. We heard the big guns bouncing a couple of times, then we were so far in, and the war lasted not even 30 days, I guess, was 28 or 27 days, see? And then we had Polish people then working there on prisoners of war on the farms because our young people was all drafted, see? But they went home for the Poland is 90% Catholic. And they went to holidays, even civilian young girls, and so they went home, came back, and the farmers had always something to eat, you know. It was real nice. And worked on the farms. I wish I could have stayed there and worked on the farms. I was drafted, see. And then the training began then right after Christmas, and that was on the Weichsel River in those little hills there, and cold and slippery and icy, but we had good trainers because they was all veterans already. They went through the France, what was wounded people in France. And what was not seriously wounded, but they had to heal up first, probably had wounds on the arms, or they was our trainers, and they didn't treat us bad. They know that just make assholes out of them, you know, that in the war they found out. They went to, well, France too. That was the same summer then in 43. France fell too, you know, they went through France. When France had all the the big fence line in France, but our airports went behind the fence lines, so France fell pretty quick too. Well, then it was quiet for a while, but they should have stopped right then. You know, they wanted the territories back what they lost after World War II. One. See? And that they had them. See, in Poland that part, and from France that part, what was used to be German, what the French took after World War II, then they should have stopped, see. But then they went to Africa, raised hell there. And all the other European countries, well, they occupied, but there wasn't such bad fights, not that serious, see. And then mostly the submarines would sunk all those ships then. The almost brother, Fritz, he was by the submarine, and he is the only one out of her family that stayed alive. And there's two older brothers, they both died in Russia. So, see, when I was drafted, then they was already, they went into Russia then in 41, I guess, and it was almost in Moscow, see. And then that cold winter came from 41 to 42. We had so much snow, even the railroads got stuck already in Eastern Germany. And that what killed our troops there, terrible, you know. We didn't have those clothes, not prepared that they got so far into Russia. I heard then, well, the generals don't want to go on, they want to stay our winter. But no, they had to keep on going. See? But then they ran into Stalingrad, and there they lost the whole division there. Then I still was home. But when I got there, that was then a steady line already. That was in 42, 43 in May. Yeah, we had 3 months training behind us, and then I got 1 weekend then once leave from, I could go and visit my grandparents and my parents too. See? It was in a train, probably a couple of hours ride. But then they promised us if we got the training behind us, then we get 3 weeks before we go on the Eastern Front. See? But no move. Then we went into Germany, and in middle part of Germany, and that is put the whole transport ship train together. By train we went, I think we was 2-3 days on the train. That Russia is so big, I tell you never saw it see an end. And then finally you hear the bouncing, bang, 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 and here we are. And I was then transferred to the artillery battery. One battery had always 3 guns and the communication outfit, and I had to do that telephone. You carry it yet, the little box, and from the batteries, the guns was always 5-6 kilometers behind the front lines. And the front lines was ditches or the holes. You laid in the foxholes. You never laid in any house. And if there was a house, you'd dug a hole a couple of yards away or 100 yards away, because you were safer in that hole than in a house, see? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I could lay here in the backyard, and they would not shoot at me in the backyard. They would shoot in the house, see? So we wasn't allowed to even lay in the house. No, God, it was summer when that was there. And the rye was dry in the field. We took that couple of bundles straw, put them in the holes, and then we slept in the holes, see? Slept like that, because always on the go, and backwards or forwards, and the bouncing from the big guns and what those bullets, the traces, they light up when they shoot them at night, see. They went over there, we saw them. I had to get over when they with grenades, they shot, and they always hit them the damn telephone lines, and we had to fix them. Get from the bunker in the night. You never walk around in the daytime on the front lines. You're always in the ground or at night. Took the line then from the bunker in the back and went on the front. And sometimes the line was broke. You have to find the other side too. That happened that we hung up on the Russian line, talked to the Russians. Well, there used to have to be those tractor vehicles, with those big iron wheels on there. They used to roll over one of those damn telephone lines and broke, see? And there we sit. And then in the night, all alone you went to the front line and then back. Sometimes you didn't find it, them down trucks, they took that down telephone line and ran about a mile that way a bit or that way. Then you had to find the other one in the dark. You ran around there in the daytime. So that was all okay. And then when we was around Vitebsk, it was like a shoehorn. And then the Russians came that way around, they cut us off there. See? And there we was about our 20,000 what got in the prison there. And in those fights there where I lost my eyesight. See? I just laid behind all the railroad tracks there, and when the pounding and bang, bang, and those splitters all, if you was in the woods, they cut the little trees, those splitters right off, that looked terrible. It smelled like powder, like hell, everything. And then I just looked out over a little stump was there, and I laid in there. You held the nose as deep as you could, and even if it was mud. And there, all of a sudden, it was like a drop of water ran over my eye, and my body was about 10 yards away. He came over and he said, yeah, he saw something in the little, it was the size like a little needle head, such a little piece of was in that eye, right in the pupil. That was that drop of water what ran out then. Well, then I got this patch over there that eye. They had it there, and I never tried to, I would have got home then for a while till it was healed or checked it out. But then they circled us in. I worked with other guys for mornings till late in the afternoon. And in Russia, that time, in the summertime, in June, it get daylight at 2 o'clock. That was the longest day in my life, I tell you. We didn't know when the hell we were, And we heard always those big army trucks rolling, and we always thought they were our trucks. That was the Russians. I had still my Degen here on the side, and I found a pistol. Some officer lost usually regular Lancers. They used to have a carabiner. But I found a pistol I took along. But when I found out that they were not the Germans anymore, that was the Russian, I threw them in the marsh. But they never took my knife away. And then there was about a group of maybe 8 or 12, all young guys. And the Russian guard had those little Panya horses they had there. And he sat on the horse, and we had to run behind him on that horse, east. The rye fields this high, warm like heck, but then we was in good shape. 19 years we could run. But you never know what the shooters or what will you end up, see? Because we was only a few people. And then we came in the village. And when we walked in that village on the left side, there we saw 3, 4 bodies. But they didn't stop there. They took us on the other end of that little town, and there was a whole bunch of 100 or 200 prisoners of our breed then. And then we felt safer. If you more with us, you know, 1 or 2 they would have shot, and they would dig a hole any place there, and the canvas round, that's they buried you. But then if I was there with more people, and we felt safer. But nothing to eat, you know. Before we got there, we had to march and march and march. And then sometimes in the nice green pasture there, that was in June, I ate from the clover, those blossoms. 1 little potato cooked, that's all we got all day. And when we went up, you got dizzy, you know, you was so weak. And I saw a couple of guys, they was wounded, had half the weight here ripped off, and had bandages around, maggots on there. A couple of times, 2 guys I remember once fell when it was ready to march on. They didn't stay up anymore, they was dead. They laid right there. And they maggots, the poison all on there. That took us about a week on those marches back. And then we went to Moscow. For Moscow, that was a big propaganda day. We laid always thousands in squares in the pasture with ropes just around, see? And there they had a big haystack there. And there they had cameras on top, and we had to get up and down. Up and down. So they make pictures, see? And one morning, and there, you know what they fed us there? Pork and beans from America in cans. Yeah. That's the best thing gonna come yet. Best thing gonna come. Well, after a week or longer, I got used water, maybe dirty water too, and that little food, and then beans and pork and beans didn't agree so good in your tummy. See? Anyhow, one morning got early, like I said, get early, light day at 4 o'clock. Always there's groups with thousands started walking. Always 5, 6 in a wide and the rest behind. And then the next bench came. And you know what they did? They marched us from one end in the city to Moscow, to the main street, to the other end. And the people in the Moscow was in the buildings and jubeled and what they all say in Russia, left and right. On the right side was then guys on those little horses, and some walked beside. And they always looked, because their own people was in our army and helped us work, you know, but they had the same uniforms on as we, only they had a little different marks here in the collar. And they always came by and wanted to know, they called them Peavy. That was their own, and they looked at them like they sold their country out for us, see? You know? You know what I mean? What you call, what is the right, was deserters from there, and they worked also in the kitchens in the army. We had kitchens, really kitchens, not just everything packed already. And they helped their peel potatoes and everything, and brought the food to the front lines in the dark, carrying that those 4 or 5 kilometers always. And they was looking for them. And they found them, and they was always in the middle. They knew they were looking for us. They didn't bother about us. But they wanted to find out if there was some in our, and there was plenty in there. I don't know if they found them or not, but they was hidden always inside the bunch, see. And then the last ones in the back always had to run. See, the street was smaller, then they had to stretch out. And then they got wider, the streets, and then the last ones had to run always, see. And then, eating now the last 2 days was pork and beans. They pooped right in the middle on the street in the Moscow. No cultura, no cultura, the Russians always hollered. No cultura. We had no cultura. Well, that went through, you couldn't hold it. Then when they caught them, they put a rifle butt and kicked them in the ass too, yeah. But really, that's the truth. You couldn't hold it, you know. They let your pants down, and when we stopped, and they just... And then, they're on the end now all day to the town, city. All day marching, no water. And there stood a train with boxcars. And in that boxcars was on each corner inside a pail of water. And our prisoners, we stormed over those cars like a herd of cattle had nothing to drink for 2 days. So thirsty and worn out walking through that city. And then we was in the boxcars. That was about 3 days to the Caucasus, to Georgia, way down south, if you know where that is. And what they fed us, dried bread, barley bread, real heavy barley bread, sheet little, like a slice of wheat bread, not more. And salted herrings, that we had to divide 2 guys, 1 herring. The bread dry and the herring salty and no water. Now some of the guys, we saved our empty cans from the beans and pork and took them along. So when we had, that was our eat where anyhow. We put a little wire over there, and that was our where we got our food in those cans. Water soups. And then when it rained in those boxcars was whole, when it rained we held our cans outside so we caught some rain. And once I was lucky, the locomotive was steam locomotives. They have to get water on the station. So on the cars was the doors closed, see? And then each car could go and fill their cans up when you had them, or drink as much you want there, where that big pump would fill the locomotive up with water. And then we went up, and the same thing with pooping. You had to, some often held the poop out of this hole on the back and top there in the boxcar, pooped outside. Once the train pulled slow in the station someplace, on the way down there. And the guard or somebody was out already on the railroad station. He took the butt end and his bayonet or rifle and hit him in the butt, so he fell right down. We had bridges in them boxcars, see. Ach, and how many then already, especially older ones that had families, was not many, but there was older ones, and they said, well, they we don't make it anyhow. They gave up completely. And I always said, you make it, you want to make it home. Well, then we came there down in the Caucasian mountains, and there was, just in the pasture too, there was nothing there for us, no buildings. We had to make bricks out of straw and mud. On the river, we knocked the clay down in big, like this room, and the Russian boys brought straw there from the fields, and they had to step the straw in there and pump water from the river with a pump, make mud out of that, make blocks like this thick, carry the mud up on the hill, it was flat, they had forms, you put that mud in there, and there, in the summertime too, and it was in July, but then a lot of people drink that water. You know, they're not supposed to, but you're out there carrying it, 2 wooden bars, boards over, and you carry that mud, that is heavy. And up there you put it in, and then it dried there. The next day you took the forms off and stood them up at the edge, those, so they dried good. And then when we camped there in that pasture, every morning before we get anything to eat, everybody had to go then carry 1 block where they build in with mud those buildings. And then we had to go on the wood, get wooden limbs to make the roof, and then carry that clay mud on the roofs, carry it up there. We had to build first our buildings ourselves, that we had a roof over our head, see? And then in the fall, there a lot of people got sick, including me. We had always those cramps in the intestines. And if you would be like healthy, you two right now, if you had that sickness, you wouldn't eat. You just even traded in what you got on water. And that water they had to carry up in drums too from the river. That was our water for washing. And we only get the cup water. And you know how they wash the Russians when they wash? You got a cup, you swallow out of the cup, that's good, and then they put it in the hand and then they wash them. And then they're not supposed to drink that water then, but they even traded for what little food they got, some more water. They burned up inside. In 10 days, then they couldn't get more on the bridges there. It was just wooden bridges where we laid on, no padding or nothing. And then we was already so skinny, you know. You felt every damn nut in the wood. And then he couldn't get any more, so it was so weak, then he laid there and died like flies. And that whole train there, they always had camps there, about 200 in a camp like here, one in Jacksonville, one in Cabot, and then pick and shovel. We had to make the road beds, shoveling and picking, and later on loading the trucks with gravel and picking and building the roads. See? Naja, that was from the buildings. Then I worked in the mountains there, get those big tree logs, big heavy things we had to transport down those mountains, and they got stuck then on the side. And then we had to, with crowbars, get them out so they get rolling again. They went down those hills that was just like ash, everything pounded to hell. They're supposed to roll around this way, but sometimes they went this way. And when they hit those on rocks, some of them split open. And that was always dangerous if somebody didn't watch out there, you know. And there we stood in the mornings and looked at that downhill up there, and all we had in the morning, a piece of dry bread made with a piece of 2 slices wheat bread the size, see? And that was 500 gram. But that was so heavy, that was just a piece like 2 slices, see? And our pots full soup with herring bones in there, the fish bones in there, and little grits you could find if you was lucky. And then we always had to, with 10 guys, we had to go lick pen and get out from the kitchen for 10 guys. Then we put those cans around and divided that in 10 cans, see? But we had green peas sometimes. They put the water first in and then counted the peas, that everybody get the same amount of peas. They probably only get 20 peas. That always was in there. See? Or from cows, the tummy, you know, clean that. If we just had enough, it would taste good, but we only found a piece or two in a damn 3/4 can of soup, see? So it didn't. And then 1 spoonful kasher, that is like grits here, 1 spoonful. That's all you got. In the morning, the bread was gone before I even went to the barracks sometimes. And then you had to all, in the evenings, that then soup, and in the noon too. And then we had to carry that down heavy clay up the hill, and some people worked themselves to death. Then you get the extra little piece, they gave you a little piece of watermelon. It was water too. When we later on, when they made asphalt, we had to go there and work the night shift. And then we went in the dark. We put those cans we took along, our quart cans, see, and in potato fields. We found some this big yet. There was so many times we went through there, they was green already. See? And then we put those cans on those hard cookers there, what melts that asphalt and make that asphalt. See? Or the red beans we was after. See? Well, the guard, we went with 200 people or 150 then for night shift there. The guard, he came along, had his rifle. They didn't mistreat us, that I must say. Only for 4 years, never was full. They always had hunger. All you talked about in those years about food, what you had at home and this and that. We talked nothing else about food. See? And then green, red beets we found. We put that can then full of red beets, and then how to bring it in the camp now. You're not supposed to get in the fields and bring something inside. Then we put our old jackets, what we had, close the sleeve, and put that full of cooked beets. Yeah, red beets. Tastes real good. But you could poop all the time. That was just like water too. Some of them went on the fields corn. That was feed corn. One guy ate so much, he had his intestines made knots and died. See, he ate them raw, you know, just like they came out of the damn ears. You're not supposed to go in. On the side, we had to walk, always walk. You never got, where you had to go, you had to walk. And when you got by the fields, first couple of yards, there was no more ears under corn. That was all. We had to go in there so nobody saw it. And or when we, in the fall, when we was once in the basement, outside basement, went through potatoes a whole bunch for the winter, and we had to go through there, pick the rotten ones out. Well, you're not supposed to take any out there, but we always find some way to get them out and then cook them. Yeah, how you cook them? in our barracks, you know what was in there? Just the 55 drum, das war der Heater and this and everything. And we couldn't get close to it because then the heat didn't spread out. We had to stay where we are, you know, so the heat spread out. But some of them cooked, and once I remember I came in, there was a bunch in that building, a real old stone building, cold in there like hell. That was in the winter. Toilets outside, just all boards, and there was holes in there. You go over there, not even a seat. See? Cold like hell. Sometimes you kept your clothes on. See? And that was with all wooden bridges. And once it smelled so good. Some guy carried a dog in underneath his coat, long coat, you know. He cooked that dog. But I tell you, when I heard that, I rather ate than nothing, because them dogs got trichins, see? You're not supposed to eat that dog meat, see? And, but he got a damn dog in. You smelled it. You never smelled meat cooked anymore for 4 years, you know. That was the biggest problems. You was hungry all the time, you know. And everybody was thin, and if you get too skinny, then they let you once go by without work a week, and then you had to go back again, see?
What years were you in
And
Russia?
that was from 44, when was it? 44, middle of June in 44, and I came home in August 48. The war was over in 45.
But you were still prisoner of war.
45. Eh? And we was wondering sometimes, you know, there were so many people died and was captured in Stalingrad too, but we never saw anybody there. I was wondering what happened. They probably died all. Because that was in the winter. And there I heard they hung on airplanes, when the airplanes still went in there. They hung outside, tried to get out of there. And that was now like in a city from house to house, but I never experienced. I never was in a city. We always was in those wide open, like you could go here out west and see how far you can see. No end in sight, and probably here a soldier, and probably blocks away another one. And if the Russians wanted that, they could have went through our lines long times ago, but they didn't have the guts either, I guess. And we had good weapons. I mean, I saw those big guns which could ruin the big tanks, you know. I saw once on the horizon there on the hillside, we saw tanks there. Well, we had there, lucky, one of those big guns was there. They shot, but they make a noise, you know. And we looked, and the whole damn thing was bang. The whole damn thing, that was tons and tons of steel. But they must have hit them from the side, and there's ammunition in the side. And another ones, they knocked, that was in the village. The Russians come in from the other side, we was on this side. And on this side we had a gun like that too. That we hid and looked at the tank. It stood there, see? But we heard it inside clicking. The ammunition, you know, the machine you wear ammunition, you could hear it. See? They exploded inside those big steel tanks. And well, we walked away. And my golly, we wasn't far enough away, not as far here till the shul. That thing blew up. Them damn big wheels with those chains on. You saw them in the air. And then I saw them when they shot some, where the poor guys came out in flames out the hole and it opened up. That was the regular traps for me, you know. And they could be ruined too if they get a hit so they couldn't turn the gun anymore on top, then it was useless. See? But inside they just had a slit like that. If you was in a hole and the tanks ran over, you were safe. They didn't see you. We was trained like that, and if we had more ammunition, you could put them direct by hand on the tank. If you try to hide and they don't see you, in there they just had the little slits in the front. See? All make that crap making to kill people and make the world misery. And when they talk here about war, I tell you, everybody that talks about it should hang right there on the tree. Honest to God, those poor people. I was in Russia. I feel sorry for them. How too? Because we shut in their houses. The houses had those straw roofs, you know, those like you see in all the films, you know, like even here, you know, in the islands here in the Caribbean, they got those with those straw roofs. They're good insulation. You never get hot in those underneath those roofs. See? Now I just light a bullet in there. That house was in flames. See? And there you walked by. Then we walked by too, and I saw those Russian women there sitting by their ruins, and the house still was burning. And when we was once in the back for a week or so for rest, our unit, the houses was there empty too, and there we slept inside. Then we was used to that already. They had all those block houses there in the middle part of Russia, block houses, and moss in between those blocks, and the inside newspaper. And behind the newspaper was the Wanzen. If you turn light on, they fell right out on you and bite you. Those box behind. If you took the paper off, those blocks inside, full of. When I got there first, I couldn't sleep. It stank so inside. I slept outside, but later on, I did sleep inside. It didn't bother me anymore. And there too, the people we were supposed to buy like I said before, beside those houses, we had to make holes in case they fire big guns, that we could go in those holes, see? And there we dug holes, and we came on bells, wooden bells. They had grain in those wooden bells. They hid it from us, see? In the ground beside the houses, see? And that same happened then when the Russians came into Germany. As once my mother and my people what stayed there, you know, went through that. The same thing happened there. They put everything in the milk cans and buried it.
What were some of the biggest lessons you learned from your experience, and what are some of the biggest lessons you learned from your experience in the war?
Oh, that's foolish. Everybody loses. Nobody wins. And okay, now I tell you, so how it came that we stayed so long. We had to work there for the Russians, eh? And that always said already 1 year, in the second year, in the third year, oh, you're gonna go home pretty soon. The guard then, the guard, we had one guard with 200, but their own political prisoners. They brought on a flatbed truck 4 guards and 2 shepherds, whole dogs, and they brought them to work. They was guarded, see? we asked some of them. We was guarded, we couldn't go away there. That was, one guy tried it too and went over the Turkish mountain to Turkey. Turkey was natural. They caught him, and then later on he was even a commandant in the, he didn't have the hunger. He was in some kind of prisoner part of the, because they caught him, no? And they even had a Russian woman, I guess, who tried to help him. Eh? And he could speak the language even, see? Nobody could go So we went with one guy sometimes. I went once to one camp to another. They sent me there, I don't know what is those, no guard went. I could run everywhere. It was so far away. And they never kept the word that then we came to another camp and there we met other people again. I thought you was home long ago. No, he said, they just transferred us. See? And so we was fooled all the time. We went to another camp. We found all those people they're supposed to be home long time ago. They never did. Finally, I was in a stone pit shoveling gravel and American troop trucks. They had that too. And those rollers on the street, they came from America too. So they had German prisoners to do the work, and Roosevelt sent them the equipment, all of what they wanted. And all those trucks, they had those banks inside those trucks. And then they was so long from here, you had to go with the shovel and carry that gravel from the front to the back. And I had to load in the gravel pit. And all of a sudden, the Rus guard came, de mooi. Then sofort, leave everything, the shovel, go home, get new underclothes, underwear. You, de mooi dat is, you comes to house. We didn't believe it. Finally, they brought us to another camp. And sure enough, there they came together. From different smaller camps, it was a big, but then it came to loading. They brought us there on the railroad tracks like here, the tracks here from here to Jacksonville. On the tracks, nothing there. One car was there, one boxcar. You know, half an hour later, another one came. So it took all day before they had that long boxcar train put together, and then we left. The only thing on the way home, we could have the doors open. Yeah. But I didn't leave some of them already went out and when the train, and some of them didn't make it back. I said, I stay that day. I'm not going to get lost here. And the train station, they had big piles of wheat already. It was in the summer too, you know, in July, August. That lay there all open there, the grain. I said, what kind of, that was all state, everything was state. If you did something wrong, put a wrench in the machine, you were against this, you make sabotage on the state. That was strong. When we asked those prisoners, you know, what, they had 4 guards and 2 dogs on the truck. Why you did it? Well, I was thrown shot at Stalin and they gave me 20 years. They don't give you a couple of years, 15, 20 years labor, not in prison, working, hard work. Yeah, that's the way that system worked. We had it better than them people, their own. And later on I read books, and we were so hungry, they had such bad crops there in Russia, and those people had to steal themselves. And one of our prisoners, there was 2, they went once in a potato field, they carried them out, and the potatoes rolled out of their pocket. See? The state owned everything, see? And the state had guards on every field. Their own people stole them blind, see?
So what happened when you made it back to Germany on the train?
Then we came in Poland then, and the Brest-Litovsk was the city. There the train rode in after I don't know how many days, I forgot, but took at least 4 or 5 days too from there in Russia that way. And then we had to go all out of the train in big halls. Strip everything down, all stood naked there. And that picture, they never took that away on me. Zeig him das. My uniform picture.
Yeah, we'll show them a little bit.
Yeah, I can get back up to you if you just want to take a seat.
Yeah, sit down, Opa.
Yeah. They stripped us.
Back up.
and we had all put our arms up. Our SS troops, they were special forces, see? They had all a mark underneath their arms. And if they found some there yet, what was on the way home, they kept them, sent them back again. And some of them took their lives then. Was already on the border and sent them back, see? But then through Poland, then they locked the doors again on our boxes, of the cars. And yeah, then I came to Frankfurt, and then trains came in there with civilians, girls, women. We never knew that they had so many women like my cousins, Irmgard, and my teacher in that little village. They was shipped them to Russia. And my older sister, but she was so young, her name never was on the list. Then she was already in Poland. And when finally she took off, went by foot, then to our village back home, and had to walk at night, otherwise the Poles caught her, she had to work. My older sister. Okay, your mother remembers her yet, yeah. Yeah, now, okay, then let's forget that. And then we came to Frankfurt on the Oder. All them years, all women worked on the railroads and this, and it was all rubble. But years ago, we had all different experience and hopes coming back. And that was just about this time too, because my brother's birthday was on the 8th of August, and I thought I'd be home by his birthday. Yeah, there was no home. I came to Frankfurt. People that had addresses in the West or in East Germany, they could go home then. Get the discharge papers from the Russians. Yeah, I got no place to go. Our part of the country was so far east that part they gave to Poland, and our relatives was all out. It was all out by 46. My mother and my sisters, my uncle, and my grandparents too. Well, then I wrote for my grandmother's brother was in Berlin, a big shot on the post office. I knew his name, Karl Teske. I knew about his age, and I knew he was on the post office and read to the Red Cross. In 2 weeks, he himself sent me then a letter. No, then I came first there in East Germany in the camp again. That was worse than in Russia. But then came a farmer. He needed help. So, of course, I had to get out of there in East Germany. And the German-Romanian girl was shipped home too, but she could go back to Romania. She too went to the farm. At least we had enough to eat there. And that guy was never drafted. He had a little something, and his mother was old too, and they helped on the farm. That was then in the end of August, September, October. And then I got then that letter there from the Red Cross, from my granduncle, from my grandmother's brother, because I knew him. He came always in his vacation before the war. He liked fishing. We had those nice lakes there where everybody was. My father and my older sister was in West Germany, in Bünde. My father was too in the army. He was in Italy. And those years in 43, I was once for 3 weeks in furlough, and my dad made it so that he was in furlough too. And another one from Papa's brother and one brother-in-law, we met all there. And they made that picture that time. That was in 43 in February. And it was the last time we was together. But then my mother was in East Germany. She visited me then, my mother, there on that farm. And she told me then, that they had already everything packed in a suitcase and went to West Germany where my father lived, see. And I went there then from the farm, stopped by there, and then I went to my mother there in East Germany, and then we didn't go together because you don't want to get together and get caught there again on the western border. I had no trouble going through there because I had a discharge paper, see. But a lot of people that went through there, they kept them there, no? They kept them overnight and let them go. But so I came there on the border, on the train, where you went through when you went Berlin. There out the train, went right on the railroad tracks west, and I heard already on the train that those guards there in between West and East Germany, they watch on a little bridge there, the railroad, where they watch that people go over, send them back. And it was in November, dark, and I walked and walked, and all of a sudden a guy came out behind a house there on the railroad tracks and asked me, "Is the bridge free?" I said, "What? I'm in the West now, in Western?" "Yeah, you are here." They wanted to go back to East. See, they had black markets, changing cigarettes and what they exchanged in the black markets at them years. And then I went then to Helmstedt and went then to the English. They gave me discharge papers, and that was then 4 years really important that we had those papers when we came to America.
Going back a little, what were your grandparents' names and what were they like?
Well, Max Stach and Anna Stach. That was my grandparents. And then, of course, when my father had parents too, I had 2 sets of grandparents. His name was Paul Kroll too, and I don't know what was his mother then. Yeah. My grandmother's from father's side.
And what were they like? Were you close with them?
Not with them. We only went there when I was a kid on the Easter holidays. See, in Germany you got always 2 holidays, Easter and Christmas and Pentecost. See? Pentecost was always in May, June, and that was always so nice there. They had nice woods, they lived there, and good farming. Uncle Walter was there. And there was always the whole family together then, from father's side. He was the youngest. There was 5 brothers and 1 sister.
And what about your parents? What were their names?
Kroll.
What were their full names?
Yeah. Well, my mother's parents was Stach. S-C-H.
No, your parents' names.
My parents' name, Kroll.
Whole name.
Hmm?
Their whole name.
Eduard, my dad's name, and my mother's name was Greta. So like yours name, Grete, but that was with A.
And what were your parents like?
Oh, God. I had young parents, no problem. They went swimming with us. We learned in that little village, like I said, where we only had those few kids. When there was too hot, then they got heat vacation, you know. They got early out of school. But our teacher had only that one teacher, and those kids there, those 15, 16, we went on the lake. We could walk down there. There was sand. Then we had to, in the sand we have to learn first. And then we went in the lake. Everybody could swim already then. My mother was born there too. She never could swim. because the teachers did it them years. But in the 30s, the same was with all those games, what they do the Olympics from the schools. We did that in our classes too. Springing, high jumping, fast running, that we had. Our school, that was in the city, see? We had a hall where they make those, on the racks and on the horse, where they make, that we had that already in the 30s from the schools.
And what about, did you have any siblings?
Brothers and sisters?
Yes.
Well, yeah, my brother bring doch mal das Bild, those pictures for sich.
Yeah, we'll show them later. Tell them their names.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rudy Kroll is my brother. He was born in 27, 3 years later, and he got drafted in February before the war was out in May, and he never came back, and nobody know where he disappeared to. My father died here in 91, and he tried through the Red Cross. A lot of people found through the Red Cross, but he never did find them, and never. He wrote to his relatives in Berlin. Yeah, they had cards from him. He never got out of Germany. The war was almost over. But he would have been 18 in August 1st, and he was drafted already in the February, I guess. And then I had one sister. She was the one Russians took along, and he was there for months till summer in a camp in Poland. But from that camp, they all got shipped into Russia. See? But her name, she said, never was on the list. And finally, she took off west by night. In the daytime, the Poles made a work tent for her. And she came on there with the body full of what they call yellow kretzer. She always was aging. Her friends, they wouldn't even go near her. Then my mother and my younger sister and my grandparents, they was yet in the part what was Polish. And there was no doctors, no medicine. But my mother said she always, that was in the sun, she lay there on the lake too, where the nice lakes with sand and clean water. The sun healed her so or so. And my younger sister, she stayed with mother all the time.
He's about Tante Vera. Tell about Tante Vera.
Hmm? Tell him about Tante Vera. Oh, I was from my grandparents, and Vera was born in that little city. And I remember it was on the 27th of March. It was on the Easter Sunday. She was born. Anyhow, we put Easter nests outside, and we had a big garden full of trees. I went to the cemetery. There was a lot of moss. I was then, 14. Or not. I wasn't even that old. 8 years, yeah. I was only 8 years then. She's 8 years younger. It made me nice nests, and them years too, we had out of chocolate, Easter bunnies and Easter eggs, candies. Eggs we had enough, we don't want the boiled eggs. But I was the only one, but the grandparents, I had a lot of, so I couldn't sleep in the morning anymore in the bed. And the bed was right on the road, like the road goodbye here by the windows, there was a little pathway. And there a woman came, she was Catholic, and in the next village, that was all Catholic. But in the city there, they used to have a little Catholic church, other ones were Protestant, Evangelical. But she went then Easter morning and went to the Catholic church for Easter morning service, but she came by, and that was 7 kilometers and another 5. And on the way she made a byway yet, she had to go off the main street a kilometer. She came by and knocked on the window, and she said, Greta had a Mecca. Das heißt auf Plattdeutsch, Greta was her mother, meine mother. She had a girl, and she walked by. No telephone. You had to give that message to my her mother, you know. I was there, but it was my grandparents. See? Never forget it, because I didn't sleep anymore. I wanted to go out all real early, check those Easter eggs. There she was on the window. All she said, Greta had a Mecca. A girl. Greta had, that was Vera. So I know Vera from little on. I know the first time she walked, when my mother was hanging clothes on the lines outside for drying. All of a sudden she started ran over the place, you know, where the washer was hanging. Well, that's, never forget stuff like that. Of course, when I think now too, I'm always so early, so wake so early in the morning, and then I can't sleep anymore. And sometimes it got into your head. I said, is it that long ahead gone by? You know, I'm 94 yet, see. Then I was 18 and younger yet. I remember that all. And there too, like holidays or the birthdays, that's the only time we got cakes. For a birthday or a holidays, Christmas, Easter, and Pentecost. Easter, Good Friday is a holiday too, so that meant, but Good Friday nobody worked. That was a holy, they made a holy day out of that. Nobody worked, except the village there was Catholic. And they didn't work in the fields, they did painting their barns and stuff with lime. White, they make that white, but lime is white, you know. If that, but they couldn't allow outside working. But you had to feed the animals, yeah.
And then you were married and
No, married then, and already when I was home 2 years from her.
And how did you meet your wife?
New Year's Eve.
So what happened?
No, the Kroonspalt, you know. First I worked then on a little farm too when I came home in 48. My father had only one room apartment them years, see? And my mother and my younger sister came then from East Germany, so I had to get out of the house and find something to do. So her son was killed in the war and her husband died, and she had a business them years. She had land and a horse and a couple of cows, and she sold coal. You know, they had a big piles of coal. Them years they heated with coal yet and fired the stoves with coal and wood, see? And then I delivered coal then to people, and with that horse. And then started work. He had a big butcher shop, and he needed somebody. He had a big pasture there, had our cows too, and they butchered about every week so 20 hogs and 4 or 5 cattle and cows. But I was then 2 years by Kroonspalt, and she met that woman yesterday. The young Kroonspalt was my age. He was a little older than me. He married that woman, and that was in 1950. And she had the same year birthday on the same date than I do. So I called her yet from here every year. And when I went back, I went every year and visit the Kroonspalt, see? And they all, you know, there we had to eat, you know. The sausage was hanging right there, you know, and we had our breakfast, or break in between we worked, they had a damn smoked sausages hung there. We just cut them off and ate them. There we could eat, but they gained then such weight then.
And I don't know, did he share how he met her?
So how did you meet Oma, and why
Yeah.
did y'all get married there?
A guy what worked in the butcher shop too. He learned the trade. You know, he was a young guy, 16 years or so. And him and I had on the railroad station a stand with bratwurst we had to sell on the weekends there till midnight. See, and that was New Year's Eve. We was selling there. People that came off the trades, they had a brötchen and the sausage you could buy there, and we roasted them sausage, see, in a little stand there. And then it was 12 o'clock, we closed. Well, then in certain places there was dance. See, dance and music. We went to one place and there met Wilma then. And we went together 2 years, on and off. But my mother liked her so well because my mother sold ice cream on the market there in Bünde, you know, ice cream by the cups. So, you know. And Wilma, she was working in a sewing factory, and she know that she was from the east too, and she came from the big farm, and she could do anything. She could put electric wires together. She put electric here in the closets, and we bought this house even. She could lay a line underneath to the washer, the dryer. She could go on the roof and fix something. She could do anything. Here, all this is all her work here. All the, and well, married. I was then 27, 28 when I came over. And she was, of course, 2 years older. But there was no living. She lived with her parents. My relatives too, upstairs in a little 2-room apartment. My parents had just a little apartment. And my 2 sisters then, they were still home. And my brother didn't come back. But I lived then still home too. But I always went to work on a bicycle then too, where they had the butcher shop. And but then we met, we went dancing, and she liked to dance, see, my wife. She went here to the German-American club. They danced there at Riverfest, and they had all kinds of pictures with their nice outfits, the dresses, and she got she was 96 years old, see, and I'm 94. And when people ask me that I still look so good and what kept me so young, I said, well, I'd worked every day in my life, and I did a lot of dancing and kept the girls happy, see? And she did too. Yeah, we went to the Weinfest to Elterseders every year. I go yet, probably in the fall too. Alters, you know Alters, Wiedekehr Winery. If you go up to Fayetteville, you go right by that big sign, Alters. Yeah. And we had a German-American big Oktoberfest in Hot Springs here years ago. But everything here was a Legion Club, American Legion I went into, and met good friends here. And see, even as a German, they treated me good, and I had a lot of, and always dancing there too.
And when did you guys
I was an associate member of the American Legion here then, associate member. Paid about $15 a year, go in and out, have a beer and dance. And
Tell them how it was when y'all came to America from Germany.
What year was was that?
Oh, that was in 1952. We left June the 13th, was the 12th in New York, and the 14th in Wisconsin. And then my wife said, oh, they even hang the flags out because we came. No, that's, our sponsor said, that's Flag Day here in America, June the 14th. Naja, but then started yet where we worked. But then my father, he was a chauffeur for the English army. He came with the English from Italy. See, he was a prisoner of war under the English. They occupied Germany, where my sister lives now in northern Germany. And my father drove the Tommies around, see, in different places. And he had a lot of time reading the paper. And there was an article in the paper, America look for farm workers, and you had to be from the eastern part of Europe, where we had to all flee out, you know, and came to the west. We had a good chance. So my wife and I, not wife yet, we took the bus. There was an American counselor in a different town. It was in November, cold and dark and foggy, and the bus went there. And that lady said, you both have a good chance. You got no kids, both good age, 28 and 30. But she said, you got a problem if you're not married, she said. You have to have a lot better off if you have the same name. If you get over there and you get not married, you probably end in the east and you end in the west. You never see each other again. We went home. We had to get married. That was the end of end of November in '51. We got home, Christmas over, January 11th in '52 we married. She stayed home with her parents. I stayed home. But before we married, we saw each other. And I know her parents too. They was older than mine, a lot older. And I still asked her old man if I could marry his daughter. And Wilma's father said, well, you two are now old enough. You should know what you're doing, she told us. We didn't run away, see? We stayed home till we had to leave to America. Yeah, his father, you know, that was years ago. You asked the bride's father. And he said, and yeah, you two are old enough now. You know what you're going to do and what you want to do. You're old enough, he said. So we went in and got this started. We went home married. Went to a camp in Hamburg, and they checked us out from top to bottom, and health-wise and this and that. Was there over a week and came home, and we could pick a ship already that's supposed to go on around they gave us on the 1st of May, and of course Wilma said, my wife said, well, May the 1st is a holiday, I like to stay home yet that day. Well, okay, they gave us was one on the 5th or the 6th troop transporters. Them years the American troops went to Europe, and those displaced persons came over. Not on a cruise ship. The bed's 3 high or 4 high. The woman with kids and girls and boys under 10 on one end of the ship. The men with boys on the other side of the ship. And we had to work too. And then we could bring over just one box and just clothes and little things, you know. Wooden box. Wilma's, it was her brother-in-law built a box, and there we was packing that box. On the May the 1st was a holiday, and then there came a notice the ship was delayed for a future date. And we quit work already, a week before or 2 weeks before. We both had a job. Both. She was in a sewing factory there, and I was there by Kroonspine and what. Well, we went. That was now the first part of May, and well, go once for unemployment. Well, we got 2 weeks unemployment. That was the unemployment I had in my whole life, 2 weeks unemployment. And that was the reason, because we had to wait for the ship. Yeah, then we went on the ship on the 3rd of June, and like I said, in Wisconsin, in Chicago. My wife already knows it. I thought she got lost here. She never came back in that big railroad station in Chicago. I was glad when I saw her again. And those 2 couples what came up to Chicago, they disappeared then too. And when we came to Janesville, Wisconsin, that our sponsor had a German family there that came over after the First World War. They picked us up. They could speak German. And then they came on the farm there too. There was no animals on the farm. We lived on top, the 2 sturdy houses there in Wisconsin, those farmhouses. And they had 2 rooms ready there to build on already. It wasn't done yet. And there we was. In the morning we woke up. Oh, there's a nice lake out there, Koshkina Lake, a big lake. That's just like you put a cat in a sack, throw her out someplace, so here you are. No language. Everything strange. And then came an elderly couple. They was originally from Hamburg, Germany. They had a college on the lake. They came from Milwaukee, and they heard in some greenhorns there on that farm. They stopped by and said hello. And they brought us then from Milwaukee a lot of German food along too, but it was different ones. But we had enough to eat there by the farm, on the farm anyhow. But then the farmer bought that one older farmer out with, I think, 15 cows at one bunch. He bought it. So there I had to clean that whole barn first out. That was for old hay. That was for years in there. The strings was rotten, and the mosquitoes was bad there. I started there. I tell you, I had it so nice and nice, cool Germany. All the drinks and food, and here you come here. Go outside and everything new, and one guy, he was from Denmark. He had a car rented there. He had a tractor, made his work there with a tractor before the fall. Then the farmer, our sponsor, he wasn't a farmer. He just invested the money. Mr. Harry Day was his name. He worked for Molite that make light fixtures, and he worked then as a government inspector. They made for the Korean War the shells. He was inspector there. He always went white shirt and tie to work and came on too in the afternoon. They had 2 kids, and my wife, she learned the first words from those little boys. They went then outside in the fields and this and that, and the boys, when the dogs ran away, the boys said, then come back, come back. And my wife figured out then, oh, that must mean, komm zurück. The dog's supposed to come back, see, and the dogs came back. That's the way we learned, from when they talked and how they acted, see. And she raised those little, for a couple of months, those little kids and kept them clean and everything. And but then they wanted to make health, and they had then those cows and chickens. Extra built a nice house there for laying hens. But we didn't know the price, we didn't know this. And my wife, she was born on a farm. She knew how much work that all is. She didn't want a farm anymore, she said. so we went then to the city, started working in a little chicken dressing plant. Worked there with them for 16 years. Then he came down here to North Little Rock. And in spring 68 and 69, Tyson Food bought us out. We had a big 50-year party.
Don't get up.
Get that shirt on, showing that.
We will.
What?
We will in a little bit. Just tell the story.
And I had to be there. But the one that came down here from Wisconsin, they wanted to see old pictures and that for how we started, see? And that was, we were up there, we just had about a dozen people, and we butchered chicken mostly from farmers raised them then, not big chicken houses, see? And that's the way we started out with the chicken plant then, see? Hauling chickens, cleaning houses, and I had to find out when I had to go in the evening or early in the morning in the dark to the farmers. Sometimes I couldn't find the farmers in Wisconsin. Mr. Lee, he was the second father to me. He took a piece wax paper and made me draw me a map, so and so, the numbers. I found them. But once I couldn't find them and got daylight, and you know, you can catch the chicken in the daylight, they fly all and kill each other, see? Well, the farmer had to hang sacks in front of the window so it was dark, but I came home with the chickens. And turned the little truck over to delivering. Fridays delivered then in Madison, Wisconsin, and little stores in little towns, you know, and restaurants, fresh chicken. That's the way we started out. And then we started pre-cooked when we came here then. They bought here that plant here in Rose City. And Tyson found out that they could make more money than on pre-cooked chicken. And they bought us out then in 69, and then I worked for Tyson for 20 years, retired with 65, and now I'm 94, I'm 29 years retired.
How many kids do you have?
Hmm?
How many kids do you have?
One daughter and two granddaughters here, Hannah and Sarah. This is Hannah and Sarah is her sister. They are them the little ones. See? That's a friend from Wisconsin there, right? Yeah, Gerhard. Here to the left down there. He came us every year in the wintertime. He worked for a big meat packing company there too in Wisconsin. There was plenty of work there. In Wisconsin it was different than here. We don't have no blacks, nothing up there, you know. All people you know to that little town, and there was.
Tell them about the Heinz.
We had like here over the street neighbors, Dean Hyman and Catherine, and they had 3 kids. See? No, 4. 1 boy and 3 girls. And we came in 52. In 55, we built our first house there. But first when we came then, that was about 11 miles from the farm to Fort Atkins in the town. Fort Atkins is about, in southern Wisconsin, about 110 miles from Chicago up, a little bit into Wisconsin. It's Fort Atkins, so Madison is to the left, and Walker on the lake, see, and they're between. So there was a lot of industry and it was real nice up there. But I worked for 15 years there with Prospect Farms, and they had a mill and raised chickens and tied and butchering by hand yet everything. I was 15 years there, and they wanted to take me along here down here. So I went down with my wife here, found this house here then. This house, we live here now 250 years. And in May we had a trip planned to Germany. But then I flew back to Wisconsin Und with one of our owners, and that house we had paid in 57, that we had that house paid. 2-bedroom house, nice kitchen, full basement, garage. Cost at that time with the lot and everything, $12,500. We did all the painting, saved $500, so we did a lot of painting ourselves. And I tell you, you know what it started out with? $1.20, and my wife 90 cents. And when we came here, we could pay this house too. And then we bought a house in Jacksonville. We rented the 4-unit. And my wife was pretty handy. She in that house then, with people that rented. And there was a lot of renters in the first years from the air base, young couples. There were 4 units in there. And we did all the landscaping and everything went there. But she did all the paperwork and that. And
what was it like when your daughter was born?
Well, that was a surprise. She was born, we came in 52. She was first born in 59. She never had a babysitter. We always took her any place where we went. With our friends up there, there was a lot of friends, good friends from what came over them years from Germany and Europe, you know. We had a lot of friends there, and I still with them in touch. But a lot of them are dead by now, you know. I don't got hardly any friends more. They're all they're all in the 70s and 80s. They died. One here. This.
No.
Oh. He had 4 brothers, all younger than all 4 are gone already. Yeah.
Back up to you.
And now I sit here at 94 and don't know what to do.
Well, you get to pass on your stories. That's what you do. And
So that we came here to Arkansas, and Tyson was good to us, Dan Tyson, and
Don't get back up.
now
I'll get it in a minute.
the pictures here where they had the 50 years, she was along. They want to hire her right away as a nurse. We go there tomorrow, don't we? Get fresh chicken wings. Show him the uniform
I'll show it
they gave me.
I see that you've won a dance competition at the
I,
Oktoberfest.
in Hot Springs, that was when New Orleans flooded so bad, see? And there always came a lady up here from way down there. She said her husband don't like to dance and he is working on his damaged, flooded house. I came here to Hot Springs, she said, I like dancing. And I danced here with a Swiss lady, danced, and she saw this, we danced so good, and she told the Swiss lady here, Agnes, if I would dance with her. So I never said no. So I danced with her. She came up the next year again. The beer already on the table she had. We won both the first prize on polka dancing. That lady came from the Gulf, and he came from Germany, and they meet here and had a good time here on the Oktoberfest, the German band from St. Louis. Really good music, you know. The good times were there. And Greta brought me later on. Then she always came along too. Greta came over, the German club from here came along.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned at the very beginning where you were born, but what date were you born?
The 4th, 1424. 4th month, 14th It's April, no, 4., 14., 24. The 4th, 14, 24, 1924, yeah. It's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a long
Yeah.
time.
And Wilma was still 2 years old, and she was 90, and she passed away on her birthday, the 25th of February. On the same day she passed away with 96. And I gave care of that bed there for many years, 3 years at least. Last from Christmas to February she was here in a home. Her mind was so bad, she needed help all the time. Yeah. But I cooked for her and she ate pretty good for a while, but the last she wouldn't anymore. Here.
That's her.
There, that too.
Wow.
And this is her friends from our club, all German heritage, see? From the dance group.
Yeah. Some nice
This
young
the way
ladies.
I met her when she was.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, she did a lot of things. Curtains like that she could also herself. And when they was little girls, she made all her Halloween costumes. Yeah.
And do you have any just general life lessons you would want to share with the younger generation?
Well, yeah, but the Legion Club closed. The German club, all the ones couldn't take it anymore. They died, and the other ones get sick. They couldn't get any more. They closed that. We had always here in Prince Park, there's a building we had rented for the whole year. Always the first or the second Saturday in the month. We always came together.
Now, what is some advice that you would give the younger generation?
Well, stay busy. Always, always, always.
What else?
Working, yeah. I never had 4 days off that you. I went in Wisconsin too when they wouldn't go out Sunday afternoons. We had to go up to the Mississippi River there, hold a load of chickens. They went boating and fishing. I went, left at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, came back the next morning at 4 o'clock. That took 4 hours to drive there and then catch chicken. That had to be dark at 9 o'clock. Then back on the scale, weigh in, and then you took another 4 hours and then went back at 6 o'clock working.
So you got any other advice for the younger generation?
Yeah, dancing, young people dance anymore. They just stand there and holler. Look at Lawrence Walk, how they can play and how they can dance. They dance period and they dress period too. You ever see that band, how they dress? They don't go there with holes in the pants and stuff like that.
Dancing is medicine.
Yeah, and medicine, you know, that's another thing. I was pretty lucky. I never was much sick. In Wisconsin once I had kidney stone, but doctor told me then, you drink more beer, that spoils out the kidneys, he said. And that's right, you know. That never have to change the color, nothing. That goes real fast, see.
That's a good remedy.
Yeah, that went away. I don't got any more then, but then that hurt, I tell you. And Wilma went with me in the night to a doctor. The doctors lived in those little towns there. They didn't live in extra big villas and houses. They lived there in Fort Atkins and Sioux. You wouldn't know if the doctor lived here in the neighborhood or that block. We went there, and first we had to wake the doctor up. Then he said, go to the hospital, I'll be there. Well, he went back, fell asleep again. Had to go back again. And then he went to, in town, his office, just a few blocks away. And when she drove over the railroad tracks with the car, I could scream. But then they found out on the x-rays that stone went through. I had to tea in a sieve, some kind of, and they couldn't find a stone, but they could see that the stone went through that way from the kidney, see. Never had it again.
Wow. And what about, it says here that you had a dog when you were younger?
Yeah, I had a nice dog, and I made a wagon for him to pull out of the shed to the house for cooking and heating. That was an old, here you got to buy everything, go to Walmart, they got it. We don't have that all. We, out of old baby bucket, those 4 wheels on the axle. I put on a wooden axle, on the box on top, and the dog on both sides, a little out of old bicycle, rubber parts, you know, the bicycle, the upper part from the bicycle. I made him a nice, like a jacket for he could pull on, went around his body, and he went with that all by himself. He went to the shed, I loaded up, he went right to the door, turned around, went again, all by himself. And I had a cousin here in Toronto live. She died now. She was 8 years younger too. And when she was there off too. My grandmother, I had to ride her always in that wagon when she was 3, 4 years old. Or the milk cans. We had to bring, the whole village bring the milk cans on a stand, and the truck came and picked them all up on one spot. See, the milk cans from the milk, see, that is the milk from the evening, the milk 2 times, in the evenings and in the morning. The evening milk and the morning milk, you had to bring to 7 o'clock already to the ramp, and usually at 7:30, 8 o'clock a truck came, and they brought the milk then to the creamery, see.
And what are some of your proudest achievements of your life?
Well, really, we came over, we had nothing. We couldn't even bring money along. We had nothing. Wilma brought a sewing machine along, electric sewing machine, FAF, a suitcase sewing machine. And then she bought herself a sewing table here. She put that sewing machine on the table. And I had to carry that thing. That wasn't aluminum, that was steel, that cast iron. In New York, and them long from the boat, that suitcase came on the ship direct. We could, I see it still come down the ramp, and then we had to carry it to the long airport, railroad station. That arm was always longer, you know. The other boxes, they came later. I worked a pair of shoes already, what I had on. They fell apart before that other box that came a whole month, 5, 6 weeks later from the ship, right? That box, they was in the extra room on the ships. We got them at least a month later in Wisconsin. I used to have 2 suitcases and then that sewing machine. And that's the way, and she always sewed a lot of things. She could sew jackets and everything. She makes seat covers for the cars, sewing. They're still in the attic, a lot of stuff.
Do you have any other particular questions? I do want to get some shots of the pictures and everything. Well, do you have any?
Well, otherwise, but another thing is, if you can stay healthy, you know. Little schnapps here and there, that don't bother nobody. But I never was drunk that I don't know what you don't do, you know. I never was stopped for drinking, driving, or nothing. Never was in jail, except it was 4 years in prison of war.
So dance, stay healthy, and have a few drinks.
What?
I said, so dance, stay healthy, and have a few drinks.
Yeah, yeah.
That's your advice?
And when she don't ate what she don't want on the table when she was small, She sat right beside me. She always gave me the fatter part.
I used the yellow.
And I still eat fat. They always, I don't go by any that this power drinks and this and that and all the diet what they try to I roast my own chicken, and I roast my own beef and make pork chops and potatoes, mashed potatoes and other and noodles. That is the main. Eggs and bacon.